Hey up, folks. You know, I'm part of a declining group of people who can say, in all honesty, that they voted in both European referenda, the 1975 one and the rematch in 2016. So, what I want to do is just compare and contrast my memories of 75 with my memories of 2016. Now, looking back 50 years, a couple of things become very clear. First is that people were indifferent to the whole idea of Europe. And that indifference was coupled with a resentment that the politicians were demanding that people give up their time on a Thursday evening in June, get their asses out of their comfortable chairs and go off and vote in this bloody referendum, which people did not regard as being really worth the aggravation. They did it. People in those days believed that voting was a social duty, a civic duty, indeed. So they did it, but there was a resentment that they were being asked to do it. The indifference is something that you didn't get in 2016, but was very prevalent in 75. I remember that the Yes campaign set up shops in all the major towns and cities. And I remember going into the one in Manchester that was staffed by a very pretty girl. And it had posters and pamphlets and leaflets, which you could help yourself to. And the girl asked me if I was looking for anything specific, and I said, well, I don't know very much about the European Economic Community. I'd like, a guide to it. Oh, she said, are you a student? I said, no, I'm a cinema projectionist, which I was in those days. Well, she said, I don't know. Everybody who's come in here has been a student. They get sent by their lecturers to as part of their courses. I said, oh, well, I said, so I'm the first normal person you've had in. And she said, it looks that way. So I think that shows the indifference that normal people had to this event. It just wasn't regarded as important. You voted for or you voted against, but at the end of the day, it didn't really affect you one way or the other who won and who lost. Your life would carry on. That was the belief. Now, another factor that I want to look at is that we in 1975 believed in our politicians. Edward Heath, man who'd taken us into the European Union, had been a major in the British Army during the war. He owned a yacht which was called Morning Cloud, which he captained. He came over, and I believe he was uh, actually a rather civilised man who was trying to do his best for the country. Harold Wilson. Yeah, maybe people regarded him as a bit dodgy, but he was still good old Harold, with his Gannix raincoat and his pipe and his pints of beer. Now, the fact that in real life he didn't smoke a pipe, he smoked Havana cigars in private, and he didn't drink pints of beer, he drank expensive French brandy, that was neither here nor there. The image was of good old Harold, who you could have a pint with. And whether it was good old Harold or Ted, uh, people did not believe that those politicians would look them in the eye and lie through their teeth. Let me give you an example. We were told during the 75 referendum that if there was a job vacancy at any that was notified to any labour exchange anywhere in any country of the EEC, it would then be notified to all the other labour exchanges throughout the community. Well, I thought that was wonderful because I quite fancied showing films in Rome, you see. I don't know why I fancied Rome, but I was 18. Um, so that was one of the factors that led me, if you can believe that, to vote for the European Union or European Economic Community in those days. Because I believed that I could just pack a bag and get a job in Rome or wherever, Paris, doesn't matter, and that those jobs would be notified to my local labour exchange. Now, if you think about it, this is bloody ridiculous. But that's not the point. People in 1975 were more trusting of the politicians and didn't believe that a politician would lie through his teeth. Fast forward to 2016, and well, we know that none of them are trustworthy. More importantly, whereas nobody really cared one way or the other about the European Economic Community, by 2016 there were people who had spent decades studying Europe as part of anti-Europe campaigning groups. And our side, the pro-Brexit side, were experts on that organisation. I voted to stay in the European Union in 75. What made me change my mind? Early 1980s, I joined the Labour Party. I'd always been a union man, a strong union man, and I'd always voted Labour, but now I was a member. And I was a member because of Thatcher. And this was a case of we're part of the European Union. Oh my God, the European Union has all these rules and regulations about labour. It's a capitalist front. We need not just to defeat Thatcher, we need to defeat the European Union. 1983, when Labour campaigned to leave the EU, I was a very committed Labour activist. And in terms of the ideology that I had developed by 83, I haven't changed a word of it. I'm still the same man that I was then. The European Union is about supporting medium-sized capitalist enterprises in Europe against large American enterprises. I don't want to argue with either of them. I just want both of the fuckers out. So, I became a socialist, and because I was a socialist, I opposed the European Union. But a lot of people were opposing it on other grounds. Sovereignty. And they were the ones who really became the experts. So when it came to the 2016 referendum, we were able to put forward experts who could give lectures on what the EU had done to Greece, say. And basically, we were able to run rings around the pro-Brussels brigade, who really knew very little. 75, neither side knew anything. 2016, our side were the experts. One comparison I can make is that in 75, neither side did very much in the way of campaigning on the street, knocking on doors, speaking to people. 2016, the pro-Brussels gang did nothing. but our side did, because we knew that it was a campaign that wasn't won or lost in one city, it was nationwide. So it didn't matter that in, say, Edinburgh, where I live now, the pro-Brussels brigade won Edinburgh by, I think it was 75%, because we were out campaigning every weekend with an independent group that was loosely connected to UKIP, but really alone to itself. And just down the road from us was the Communist Party, who were doing the same. And together, we were able to not win Edinburgh, but probably increase the amount of votes that Edinburgh gave for Brexit. The pro-Brussels gang didn't bother campaigning because they knew they were going to win Edinburgh. Silly bastards. In Burnley, in Lancashire, everybody knew that Burnley was going to vote against the European Union. So the pro-Brussels gang didn't campaign because they knew they were going to lose. But the pro-Brexit campaign knew that it wasn't about winning or losing in Burnley. It was about maximising the vote. So they maximised the vote, and I think they got 62 or 63% in Burnley. We only got 25% in Edinburgh, but it probably would have been maybe 23% if we hadn't campaigned. And if the Brexiteers in Burnley hadn't campaigned, it would probably have been a victory of 60%. It was about winning the national vote. And that was something that we took to heart and which neither side had done in 1975. Another thing to remember, 2016, nobody believed in the politicians anymore. Nobody. Yes, I know that Vote Leave, the official campaign, was headed by Boris Johnson, but so what? We just ignored Vote Leave. They didn't speak for us. They did their campaign, we did ours. There were three anti-Brussels campaigning groups. One was the official and two others. And we hated each other more than we hated the Brussels brigade. But basically, we ran our campaigns in our own way, appealed to different people in our own way, and helped the victory in our own way. 75, there was nothing. There was just indifference. Final point I want to make is that after 75, the people who lost just shrugged their shoulders and got on with their lives. Yes, they formed campaigning groups eventually, and yes, those campaigning groups came together to form UKIP, but nevertheless, they did it was all very low-key. When the 2016 vote was over, oh my God, the middle class seemed to have a heart attack. It was so funny to watch them whinging. I remember saying to one of them one day, I said, "Does your beer taste any better? Did your beer taste any better when we were in the European Union?" And he looked at me, made no reply. I said, "I get more legovers than you can. Did you get more legovers than you could handle when we were still in the European Union? Or were you just having an affair with Mrs. Hand and her 5 daughters?" And he looked at me and didn't say anything. I said, "I try to understand you. I do. But I can't get my head that far up my fucking arsehole to make sense of you." I said, "You lost. Why did you lose? Because we got more fucking votes than you did. Why did we get more fucking votes than you? Because we worked for years for those votes. And if you want to turn this country again into a province of the European Union, then you're going to have to do the work that we did for the next half century. And he just looked at me and he said, oh. Which I think really sums them up. So, those are my memories of 75 and 2016. Think on, folks.